Yeah, I just felt to speak today about the power of our wombs because this is something that, in my life anyway, I have had quite a journey with. Yeah, like many women, I didn't receive any kind of real initiation to welcome me to my womanhood, to learn about the power of my womb. So it's kind of been, a discovery of trial and error and quite a haphazard one over the last 25 years of, um, being deeply involved with ancient women's wisdom traditions. And it is, in fact, the most sacred part of a woman's body temple. And the reason that I make that assertion is that it is the part of us where we create, and the womb of every woman is connected to the cosmic womb at our galactic center. Hi to those joining me live. Just let the cat out so the scratching doesn't drive me nuts. There you go, mate. So, Indigenous cultures all acknowledge that the womb of every woman is connected to the cosmic womb. And this is why, women were revered not just for their biological procreative power to create children, but their ability to manifest, and why women would gather in the red tent at the most potent time for manifesting and collectively set their intentions and seed and birth using and attuning to the power. Hi, Jamila. To the power of our wombs, connecting that with the power of the cosmic womb to birth our intentions for the greater good. So I recently, oh no, not recently, gosh, about 20 odd years ago, I had a student who was a theatre nurse, and she said if women could see what their uteruses actually look like, because she assisted on many hysterectomy surgeries, she said, I don't know that they would actually have them removed because the power of the uterus, it's like an entity in itself. And Hippocrates actually was quoted as saying that the womb is an animal within an animal. So he also was moved by the power that he witnessed in a woman's womb. So I wanted to share a recent experience that I had because I'm now 50 and I'm journeying perimenopause. I've been in it for about 7 years, truth be told. And perimenopause is that phase in our usually midlife, so from 45 to 60, but it can happen earlier, of course, the mage phase or the matriarch, the queen phase. And this is when, it's like our second maidenhood. And we're healing our first maidenhood, what happened in our teens and our 20s. In fact, we're healing everything because, even insurance companies have done studies, and this is when people develop, a lot of healing crises in this life phase, particularly if they've had traumatic events happen in their childhood and they're attributing more and more physical illness to the traumatic events. And where do women store trauma? In their wombs. That's right, in their grail. So, women's problems such as menstrual pain, excessive bleeding, endometriosis, fibroids, these are all a signal that the womb itself is holding pain, emotional pain, psychic pain, psychological pain. This is like our soft, squishy underbelly, right? And so, this is why the practice of the red tent helps women to be physically well, by giving them a safe space once a month to process their emotional pain. And we are, after all, alchemists. We are shamans. The first shamans were honored as menstrual shamans. So our job, if you will, as cyclic beings who go through a death and rebirth every month as the uterine lining sheds like a serpent, and we go through a shamanic death, a psychological, emotional death, which often involves us dissolving in tears as we acknowledge what we need to let go of in order to grow. So I was going somewhere with that point, and I can't remember where it was. I'll see if I can see any of your comments. Um, Facebook. Oh, I can see people's comments. Hi, it's so lovely to see so many of you join me live. Thank you. Really appreciate you. Hi, Kelly. I've got a few friends here have joined me. How lovely. So I recently had my appendix out, and during that operation, they discovered a fibroid. Now, I didn't really know anything about fibroids. I'd heard the word, that was about it. Um, and the gynecologist that they brought in to the operating theatre, when she came up to my bedside afterwards, she said it was too small to not warrant, to warrant removing it. So, but what she did suggest was that I come and see her because my periods had gotten heavier in perimenopause, which I thought was probably due now to this fibroid, finding out about it. And she said, I can give you medication to clot. And I'm thinking, why would anyone want to actually clot? Like your moon time, your menses is like the washing machine rinse cycle. It's a detoxification. Why would you want to like clag that up? And ironically, I'd been given two very painful injections into my stomach, into my soft squishiness, to stop clotting prior to the surgery for the appendicitis when I wasn't even at risk of thrombosis. It was just protocol and procedure. And knowing what I know now, I would have said, no, thank you. So it's that thing, once you're in the system, they assume authority over your body. And when you're vulnerable, to have to, be an advocate on your own behalf, often when you're not, feeling good, is a real challenge. But anyway, back to the fibroid. So after the surgery, 2 weeks after, I have to see the surgeon who did the appendicitis. And she says to me the opposite to what the gynecologist says. She says, the fibroid we found was big and it needed to come out, but normally that results in a lot of bleeding, so we end up taking the whole uterus out, a hysterectomy. And I said, oh, and she said, but we didn't because we didn't have your consent for that. And I'm like, good choice, good choice. Because I'm not going to be consenting to a full hysterectomy given how much I value all the collective experiential wisdom I have distilled and I hold within my grail, and the powers of manifestation that I hold within my womb. I'm not going to be consenting that be ripped out of my body unless I've actually really looked at all the treatment options. So my response to the surgeon is, would you refer me to a gynecologist so I can discuss treatment options? Her response, verbatim, I'm not going to waste the time of a gynecologist during COVID if you won't consent to a full hysterectomy. At this point, flags are up, big flags. So I thank her for her time. I wish her well. And in that moment, I realize why hysterectomies are the second most prolific surgery performed on fertile women. The first is cesarean sections, and those stats are from the US. So it turns out, I did a little bit of digging, and as many as 70% of hysterectomies performed in America, this is a study from the year 2000, so goodness knows they've been climbing by the year, they found had been recommended inappropriately. So let me get back to my story. So I end up going to see my local GP, who's a beautiful Indian man, and I explained to him, I really honour my womb. I want to keep my womb. I'd like to know what's going on in there because I'd been told it was bulky, which who the hell knows what that means? And who wants a woman who wants to be told as a woman that your uterus is bulky? It makes it sound like a shopping bag with my groceries in it. So anyway, I still am yet to find someone that can give me a definition of a bulky uterus. So we order a well, not order, but I book in for an internal pelvic ultrasound. I go and have that, and the results come back a week later. They lost them and then found them. The fibroid is tiny. It's 1.6 millimeters. It is not worth doing anything about. And yet, had I submitted when that surgeon bullied me, today I would be sitting here without a uterus. So my response when I got home, pretty shaken up from that meeting with that surgeon, was to call one of my red tent sisters, who immediately put it out to a wider network of women that were, had experience in this area. And what came back was acupuncture is great for shrinking a fibroid. This is before I even knew I was tiny and I had nothing else, no other problems in there. Nothing that would make it appear bulky as far as I could see. No endometriosis, no cysts, nothing. So I just want to put that out there. So for any woman hearing this, whether you're not yet in perimenopause, but so you remember it for when you are, because that's when fibroids are most common, or for the women that are navigating this life stage, to question the health professionals who, in this day and age, can, if not balanced by the wisdom of the feminine, can do more harm than good with their rational minds, thinking that they know better than you what is best for your body. And I think that that's really important given the current climate that we're living in, where so much authority is being handed over to the Western medical model, which is not being balanced by the wisdom of the feminine, which is the holistic model, which is a multidisciplinary approach. For instance, in my study since, I've found that hysterectomies, they can often cause a weakening of the pelvic floor and can result in loss of bladder and bowel control for women. And this is something that, if we look at the fact that 20 million women in the States have had a hysterectomy, that's a lot of women that are dealing with that sort of issue. Not all of them. In fact, a lot of women, I gotta say, go, oh God, I'm so glad I had my hysterectomy. So this message today is not to shame any woman that's had that. Go you, power of choice. I'm just advocating for informed consent, and that we are aware of all of the other treatment options that are less invasive, less traumatic to the body. Because, I read that the average woman needs 6 weeks off her regular duties, off work, perhaps losing income after the surgery of a hysterectomy, and that on average, what was it, $5 billion is spent every year annually by women on hysterectomies. So it's costing women in a number of ways. And 600,000 of these surgeries are performed every year in the States. Sorry, I could only access American statistics. But there's also other sort of potential things, that negative side effects that hysterectomies then open women up to. The Mayo Clinic acknowledges that women are more likely to develop chronic conditions after a hysterectomy, such as hypertension, obesity, cardiac arrhythmias, so irregular heartbeats, and coronary artery disease. So, and uteral prolapse of the uterus is more common, and yet that's why a lot of people have them out in the first place. So I just think it's interesting to us to be have a discussion about this, and this is something where again in the red tent, when women are sharing every month intimate experiences about their lives, about their relationship with their bodies, then we are in a culture where we're exposed to learning about this. Whereas when we don't have that community of women, and as I film this, the sun is moving through Cancer, which is the sign of community and of women's wisdom. We are isolated and vulnerable if we don't have that. We're more likely to give our power and our authority and our sovereignty over our body temples to those who assume and assert they know better than we do. So I was lucky, I was able to also ask my stepmom, who's a retired doctor, what she would suggest. And she used to do acupuncture and had successfully been able to shrink fibroids for women that had thrombosis and were at risk of surgery. So I immediately rang my friend Carly and I was like, right, I want to have weekly acupuncture. Plus, I looked up what foods, what herbs can assist to shrink fibroids. Green tea is known to shrink fibroids. So before we carve our bodies up and mutilate ourselves, it's really good to know that there are other treatment options. I also booked in with Daniela for a beautiful Mayan abdominal massage, a womb massage. And this is something that, you know, fertility clinics are now recommending because of the scientifically proven benefits of abdominal massage, or also known as womb massage, and castor oil packs. So, you know, there's so much that contributes to the hysteria of the womb that can end up in a hysterectomy. And there's a lovely film out there, a drama. I've just received my Mac is about to run out of juice, so I'm going to have to cut this short. But it's called Hysteria. If you haven't seen that film, I'm also going to be including with a copy of this live video out to my subscribers. If you're not already a subscriber, you can subscribe free on my website, themoonwoman.com, because I have recently received a notification saying my account is at risk. So my page could be deplatformed at any time due to the cancel culture, censorship, escalation on Facebook. So if you want to be sure to have access to everything I share, not just the things I'm allowed to share, but the things that I truthfully want to share with my community, then do consider subscribing at themoonwoman.com, because there's also a very important issue that's affecting women's wombs at the moment, with a lot of excessive bleeding, which I'm not allowed to name on Facebook or I could risk being deplatformed. So I'll be sharing that with my subscribers when I share this video. So just one other thing, I am currently offering my Rites of Passage online course, which includes herbal wisdom for each life stage, as well as understanding what the astrological transits are that impact our life transitions and our life phases, as well as how our womb and our bodies initiates us, and how our kundalini, our shakti, our life force initiates us through those life phases. And that course is half price at the moment when you sign up for the Red Tent, which is the prerequisite training, and that starts July 8th. So you can find the details on my website. But knowledge is power. We grow our understanding when we come together regularly and we share our experiences, and that's the power of the Red Tent practice. So if you're interested in finding out more, you can head to my website, themoonwoman.com, and I'll put a link in with this. So, blessings on all of you that are journeying womb pain on a regular basis, or any issues. Know that by processing the trauma that your womb is holding, that you're able to lessen this impact without immediately being put on a conveyor belt to surgery. So thanks for listening. Feel free to share if you feel that this resonates with yourself and may do with other women. And thanks for tuning in. Ciao for now.